Or look, it looks like you're still live on the other one. Yeah, you are.
This one I need to end. Okay, I think it's right now.
All right, good. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are having a debate over, is the incarnation of Jesus coherent? Pulling up in a Prius, we have John Lee. He's going to be taking the affirmative tonight. Hopping down the bunny trail, we have Tom Rabbittt. We're going to start with 7-minute openings. We're going to have 5 minutes apiece for rebuttals. Then we're going to do a 30-minute open conversation, followed by a 2 to 3 minute closing statements. Then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So if you have any questions you want to ask either of the debaters, put it in the live chat. And with that, let's get started. John Lee, you want to give your
I
opening?
think it's 7-minute openings and then 5-minute.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. John, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for showing up today to the debate. Thanks, Converse, for moderating. Thanks, Tom, for showing up. So the debate is about the incarnation, um, also known as the hypostatic union of Jesus Christ. And so today I'm going to talk about the coherence of it. I'd first like to begin with the understanding of what the incarnation represents, because there's a lot of heresies that developed early on in the first few centuries that have a certain understanding of Christ, who he was, and like for instance, the Gnostics thought he was a phantom, things like that. There was like the Docetists and all sorts of things, and so by 451 AD, they had a council. It was called the Council of Chalcedon, to where they ironed it out to have a proper understanding. And this is the type of view that I'm going to be defending today. I think that I consider that orthodox. I believe that Protestants and Catholics, we also hold to this type of a view of Christ. And so the understanding is such that that God, the second person of the Trinity, became a man, and so he took on human flesh. And so it's not like he blended into a human being. It's not that he was created. It's not that there's two persons. It's not that there's any sort of division in the personhood in that sense. But in the natures, there are two natures. So it's one divine person who has two natures, a divine nature and a human nature, and all the things that go with it. And so when we refer to the person Christ, who is God incarnate, we can attribute certain characteristics of the human nature to the person who is Christ, and that is known as what's called the communicatio idiomatum. You might have heard Matt Slick mention it sometimes, but basically what it says is that when we refer to the person, you can talk about the human nature in reference to Christ. And so, for example, we see in Acts 20:28 that it says here that it says, "Be shepherds of the church of God, which he bought with his own blood." And so we see here that God bled. We can say that. We can say that God died. We can say that Mary bore God, right, as Theotokos. And so we can attribute all of these attributes to God without necessarily implying that God is a human being. So he is a divine being, and he is a divine person. And so this is how we understand it. And it's just the proper understanding is such that the divine, the human the human nature is added to God's already divine nature, which existed in eternity. And so the human nature began to exist, whereas his divine nature did not. And so that's the understanding. Now, whether that's coherent, my opponent will try to demonstrate that it's incoherent. That cannot be. How can God be a man and a human being simultaneously? And so I would be defending that today. I would be arguing that these attributes are are such that God has access to them, or Christ in this case, God, the second person of the Trinity, has access to the human nature, of which he can hunger and thirst and requires sleep and even be tempted. And so we see that the human nature is something that God acquired, whereas something he did not have beforehand. And so so it was important for God to become a human being for several reasons. Because in order for the atonement, in order for God to be a high priest, he had to be a human. We see in Hebrews 2:17, it says that he was made like them, fully human every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for our sins, for the sins of the people. And so that was the reason why God came, because people had sinned, people had broken their relationship, and God came to reconcile, and to do that, to sacrifice and to provide the sacrifice as himself. He had to become a human to do that. And so we do see in John chapter 1, verse 1, as well as 14, that the Word became flesh, the Word being God, being the second person of the Trinity. And so so this is how we understand it, and we'll go further into the discussion. And sorry that I don't have an actual prepared opening. I'm just kind of winging it right now. But I'd like to close right now with that.
That'll do, John. Thank you for your opening. Now we're going to kick it over to Tom for a 7-minute opening.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I also want to thank everyone for coming. Thanks to Converse for moderating this debate, even on short notice. I, however, must condemn and denounce John Lee as a person and his ideology. With that being said, I'm going to be taking the position that John's model of the incarnation of Jesus Christ, as represented by the Chalcedonian model, is incoherent. And to avoid confusion, I'm going to be referring to the incarnation of the second person of the Trinity as Christ, or Jesus. And prior to the incarnation, I'm going to refer to that person as a second person of the Trinity. With that being said, I'm going to present two main arguments for the incoherency of the incarnation. And the first argument is going to be what is known as the incoherence objection. And this is probably the standard objection, right? And the incoherence objection is pretty simple. According to the Chalcedonian model of the Trinity, which is John's model, Christ is fully divine and fully man. He possesses two natures simultaneously. A nature being a set of attributes. The second person of the Trinity takes on, just as John said, a second human nature, and that second nature is incompatible with his divine nature. William Lane Craig says that the Christian affirmation is that Jesus is both God and man, key word here, simultaneously. So the problem is quite clearly that Christ, the person, has contradictory properties at the same time and in the same way. Now I'm going to go on to quote Dr. Craig. Furthermore, he says, How can Jesus be truly God and truly man? If anything looks like a contradiction, this is it. Jesus seems to be the proverbial round square or married bachelor. How can he be both creator and creature, both infinite and finite? How can we unite a single person, both omniscience and ignorance, omnipotence and weakness, moral perfection and moral perfectibility, the attributes of deity which he must have possessed as the second person of the Trinity, seem to drive out the attributes of humanity. So it seems to be a logical contradiction to affirm with the historic Christian church that Jesus is truly God and truly man in the language of the classical creeds. Truly God and truly man. And just to be clear, I am not quoting Craig as just some sort of appealed authority, right? Craig's understanding of the problem reflects an academic understanding of the issue at a scholarly level. He is pointing out a problem of simultaneous attributes in a univocal way, okay? Keep that in mind. So, to put it even more clearly, Jesus Christ possesses two natures, two attribute sets simultaneously, and those attributes are incompatible. Craig outlines some of these attributes, but there are, he mentions omnipotence, weakness, moral perfection, moral perfectibility, but there's a plethora of them. I think John might have even mentioned some of them. But I'll appeal to Scripture to give you another example, right? So Matthew 24:36, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but my Father only. There's a perfect example. Jesus Christ, the person, the singular person, is both omniscient, meaning he knows everything, and not omniscient, meaning that he doesn't, for example, he doesn't know the time of the day, right? And he has both attributes simultaneously, which is a contradiction. So the Son is the singular person, Jesus Christ. That person is both omniscient and also ignorant at the same time, right? The case is going to be the same for any number of the other attributes, and we can go over that. Now, second argument that I'm going to present is known as the two sons worry, or also known as the two-person problem. This is another very simple argument. And the idea is that according to John's model, the Chalcedonian model, Jesus Christ is one person, one divine person. That's in the Chalcedonian Creed explicitly. Now, however, when we look at Christ in a rigorous way, there are two persons or two sons. So I'll go ahead and I'll make my case now why there are two sons, which is a heresy known as Nestorianism, and it is not compatible with John's model of the incarnation, which is the Chalcedonian model. So, prior to the incarnation of Christ, second person of the Trinity exists as one divine person. That divine person then takes on a human soul, a human body, a human nature. Now, if you think that the soul is sufficient for a human person, well, guess what? Now you have two persons. If you think that a human person is some kind of body-soul composite, well, guess what? Jesus had a human soul and a human body. So guess what? You got another person. Some people might try to make additional necessary conditions like a human nature or a will. But the point is that Jesus Christ gained those too. So hence, there are two persons and not one person. In other words, one divine person plus one human person equals one person under John's view, and that's a contradiction. And I'll see the rest of my time.
All right. Thanks for that, Tom. Now we're going to move into our rebuttal stage. John, we'll give you 5 minutes to start us off.
Yeah, okay. Some of the things that you were saying about Craig, Craig says that it seems contradictory. He didn't say that it is contradictory. Just to let you know. And so he's outlining what a person might think. Now, I mentioned the communicatio uh, idiomatum to you earlier, and what that represents is that we're looking at the divine person, but the attributes of the human can be attributed to the person, as well as the divine attributes and the nature can be attributed to the person. But it is not the case that we start attributing the divine nature to the human nature and vice versa. And so that is the proper understanding. Secondly, you also mentioned the Council of Chalcedon, and you said that that they have a view that's more akin to Nestorianism, which is two persons. I think it's very clearly outlined in their literature that they are strictly talking about one person. And the issue that I see is that you're doing is you're viewing nature as personhood, and that's not the case. As far as having a human nature does not make one a human person in a sense. It is once again a divine person with these attributes, and so what you said at the very end was two persons. One plus one person equals one person, and that's not how it's understood at all. That's what you're assigning based upon the erroneous assumption and the misrepresentation of the Chalcedonian Creed, which is that it's one person with these two natures. Now, you asked the question about being 100% human and 100% God, as if that's a contradiction. It just so happens that the divine person, who is Jesus Christ, holds all the attributes necessary to be a human, as well as holding all the attributes that represents God. And so there, as long as a person is holding all the attributes that represent a human, then it's the case that it qualifies as being 100% human. Does not make them a human being, does not make them a human person. I think the language is very clear that Jesus is not a human person. You'll find that in the literature. Now, with respect to some of the characteristics that you mentioned about the omniscience of Jesus, you mentioned Matthew as well, and he was mentioning that no man knows the hour or day, right? Only the Father. Well, there's a lot of ways to explain that. There's also like Philippians 2, where there's a kenotic view, where God empties himself to become a man and so forth in the person of Christ. But there's also what I hold the position to, where it's akin to the wedding feast in Rosh Hashanah and so forth. Now, that particular explanation does not make Jesus ignorant. It does not make him not know the hour of the day. It's a language that was used for that. That's the position I hold, which is a separate discussion altogether. But the main point being that the case that Jesus is not omniscient has not been established just because of those passages. And so, we could talk about it in further detail of how holding all the attributes of being human and all the attributes of representative of being God does not hold a contradiction. Because I think the initial problem that you're having is thinking that holding all the attributes of human makes them a human person. That's not necessarily the case.
30 seconds, John.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for that. We'll kick it over to Tom for your 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know what to respond to from John's opening. It was more of, it was just kind of outlining sort of like I know he's talking about Jesus, God bled and Jesus died. I don't know what to say to that. So I guess I'll just address what he said in his rebuttal. First off, you said you tried to undermine what Dr. Craig said by saying it seems like a contradiction. But you know what also seems like a contradiction? Actual contradictions, John. And he likened it to, let's see, a square circle or a married bachelor. So he likened that in contradiction to those two things, which are contradictions. So it seems like your attempt at undermining him and trying to like represent there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, or like maybe there's a chance, fails, right? He thinks it's a square circle. Okay. So attributing divine nature to human person, I don't even know what you're talking about. Look, the divine person, Jesus Christ, simultaneously has two property sets, right? The divine property set and the human property set. I don't know what you're talking about. Divine nature to attributing a divine nature to a human person. I don't know what that's about. A human nature doesn't mean personhood. I never said it did. I gave you an outline for exactly why I was attributing personhood, right? And that might even change depending on what you think personhood is. I offered quite a few different ways to look at it. You've offered nothing. So I'm looking forward to you telling us what personhood is and why Jesus didn't take on another additional human person. Let's see. You said the divine person holds all the attributes to be human, as well as holding all the attributes that represents God. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, simultaneously, and they're incompatible. So the divine person simultaneously holds the attribute of mutability and immutability. That's a straightforward contradiction. I'm not talking about another person. I'm talking about the one person, Jesus Christ. Next, you mentioned the kenotic view, right? The view that God emptied himself, or as you call it, submitted to God's will, right? Well, I don't really see how any of that matters, right? Because unless you're saying that he no longer had the divine attributes, then you still have the incoherency problem, which is that he simultaneously held the divine attributes and the human attributes, which are incompatible with each other and contradictory. Now, if you want to like play this kenosis card and saying that he emptied himself of his divine attributes, well, then guess what? He's no longer God. So good luck with that. Next, you said Jesus is not omniscient. That's just one of the perhaps dozen of traits that we can go over in this debate, right? We can go over mutability, immutability, mortal, immortal, suffering, not suffering. We can dispense with the scripture if you have a problem with that. But you're saying Jesus is not omniscient, yet the Bible says that Jesus grew in stature and wisdom. So how do you figure that happened? You said that I think all the attributes of a human being makes them a human person. No, I never said that. And so
1 minute.
I guess that's all. I've addressed everything you said, I guess.
Okay, now we will open it up to the open conversation. If you have any questions on YouTube, tag me in them, Converse Contender, or send in a super chat and we will get to them. We're going to do 30 minutes here. Who wants to start us off?
May I?
Well, I was hoping to, but
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, are you familiar with Comunicatio Idiomatum, Tom?
Yeah, you outlined it, right? Where I forgot how exactly you worded it, but Matt Slick was just also referencing it. Yeah.
Right, and so the understanding is such that the human nature, right, the attributes, are assigned to the divine person, as well as the divine nature and the attributes assigned to the divine person. You had said in your rebuttal that it was assigned to the the divine nature to the divine person, but that's not what I said. I said that the human nature is assigned to the divine person, right? But that cannot be assigned to the divine nature. That's how that's understood, and so it still remains one person. Every time in your language you talk, you're talking about what's called Nestorianism, where there's two persons.
No, and Jack went over this with you. No, that's false.
Okay, but anyway, that's how you stated it numerous times, where you're talking about two-person. In fact, you called it a two-person problem, and so at no point is the creeds talking about two persons, and so I was just wondering if you had understood what was being argued as far as that's concerned, because it doesn't seem you have the proper understanding of what's being said in the Council of Chalcedon with regard to one person. It's never.
I understand it's one person. I understand that probably better than you do at this point. It's one person with two natures, two property sets. The one person is mortal and immortal at the same time in the same way. The divine person, the one person, I'm going to say that again just so you can understand it, because you seem to have trouble following that. I am, in fact, talking about one person. The one person is able to suffer and is not able to suffer in the same time, in the same way. Now, you talked about this with Jack earlier, right? And you were in disbelief that this is a proper representation of the Council of Chalcedon's creed, right? And Jack told you that you were wrong, and you didn't think you were wrong, and you were told to ask someone. You said, "Oh, Jake knows the answer." Well, unless you asked Jake within, say, the last 2 hours or so, guess who asked Jake? I asked Jake. I asked the person that you acknowledge was an authority on this, and he disagrees with you.
And so when you said, I said that the divine person does not suffer, that's not correct at all. The divine person of Christ does suffer. God
and he's also not able to suffer at the same time in the same way.
God is born, right? And so like I said, I did want to refer back to something you said about Craig. While you were talking, I quickly looked up Reasonable Faith, his website, and basically it says people who use the expression fully God and fully man do not mean to suggest, I'm sure, that Christ is totally God and totally man, but rather that he's truly God and truly man. And so the way you're expressing it is totally man and totally God. And he goes on to say, but because of its ambiguity and non-creedal status, I think it's better to avoid this misleading expression and to use the creedal language. And so you were not using the creedal language, and you're trying to imply that God is totally a man and rather than truly a man. And I try to explain to you.
Yeah, this is not going to change anything.
Which is simply having the attributes.
Yeah, he has the full.
Does not make him a human person.
Yeah, dude, but that's the second argument. We're right now, your objection you're raising is the first argument, the incoherence objection. You don't even seem to understand the distinction between the two, right? Now,
actually, I'm addressing the two-person problem that you were alleging.
Yeah, but you're trying to say that I'm wrong about about your view entailing Nestorianism, because the Council of Chalcedon's position is that there's one person. That's the whole point. That's how I'm getting a contradiction. I can't get a contradiction if, through an analysis, it is the case that the Chalcedonian model entails one person. That's the whole point. That's why I'm bringing it up, that it entails two persons, and that's where the problem lies. Now that I let you go first, I am going to say something, right? Now, to anyone listening, anyone who has experience with John Lee, I'm going to give you a little bit of history, right? 10 months ago, John Lee was in an argument, and he challenged somebody about, well, first of all, John Lee has acknowledged that he has a burden of proof in this debate. His task in this debate is to not just say parry this, parry this, parry this. He also has a burden. a positive burden for him to show that the Chalcedonian model or the incarnation is coherent. Now, here's the problem, right? In a previous discussion, right, when somebody said, well, let's do a conceptual analysis of this, and I don't see a contradiction, John Lee called that an argument from ignorance, right? So here's the real question, right? How is it going to be the case that John Lee in this debate is going to fulfill his burden by showing that there is no contradiction in the incarnation when that reasoning by his own standard is fallacious? Now just because I like to have receipts, I'll play it for you.
You are claiming that there is a lack of demonstrated provided contradiction. Therefore, true. I tried to say that's an argumentum ad ignorantium. You are.
And there you go. So, John, I'm curious, how are you going to show that there's no contradiction in your view, since the one that you've appealed to so far is fallacious?
Well, first and foremost, during that conversation, he was arguing that there's a contradiction, and unless I proved to him that there was no contradiction, then that there is a contradiction. That is a classic argumentum ad ignorantium. Now, with respects to our discussion today, of course, I have the burden of proof to demonstrate coherence. And what I did tell you, Tom, is that for the divine person to have all the human attributes and yet still not be a human person, there is no contradiction in that. What you were trying to say is that a divine person cannot have all the human attributes. And if that a person has all the human attributes, they are a human person.
I've never said that one time in this entire debate. I never said that one time.
Therefore, divine person, well, this is what you said in terms
I've never said it one time. I've never said it one time.
So my question to you is, can a divine person have all the human attributes and still be a divine person? Yes or no?
The position is that the divine person has both.
I ask you a very simple question. Can a divine person have all the human attributes and still be a divine person? That's what I asked you.
And they have all the human attributes and divine attributes simultaneously in the same way? No. And that's the contradiction.
I'm not talking about the divine attributes. Okay? I'm asking you, can a divine person possess all the human attributes and yet still not be a human person, but a divine person? It's a simple question.
Yeah, they can still be Jesus, yeah, but that what you're describing is contradictory. It's not possible.
So the answer is yes. The answer is yes, that a divine person, what?
Look, my answer to you was with regard to this human person stuff. Look, I'm not even getting into that yet.
Okay, so if you're saying no, what is the contradiction between a divine person having all the human attributes and remaining divine?
Well, I don't know why you keep saying divine person, because we're talking about Jesus, right?
Jesus is a divine person, sir. In fact, if you knew the Council of Chalcedon, that's exactly how it's understood. One divine person.
Look, I'm going to explain to you the problem again, right? The person of Jesus simultaneously is mutable and immutable. That's a contradiction. Done.
Do you understand that according to the Council of Chalcedon, that Jesus is not a human person? Do you understand that?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I know that better than you do.
Okay, so if Jesus is not a human person, then having all the human attributes does not make Jesus a human person.
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, and so is that a contradiction that a divine person can have all the human attributes? Is there a contradiction there?
Yes, because the divine attributes are in conflict with the human attributes, and I told you exactly why.
And when I try to tell you about the communicatio idiomatum, this is for the third time now. It is such the case that the attributes of the divine is attributed to the person. The human attributes is assigned to the person, the divine person, right? And
Yeah,
that's what
you're
I'm trying
just,
to tell you.
bro.
What
You're just
trying to do,
you're just saying that one person had contradictory attributes. That's a problem, dude.
No, it's not a problem, sir. It's not a
Yeah,
problem at
it
all.
is, bro.
This is the incarnation. You're just making that claim, and you're just reiterating the claim. And
I'm not just simply making a claim. I'm specifically telling you why it's a problem. There is one subject with two.
You're claiming that these attributes cannot be simultaneously held by a divine person. That's incorrect. The only way that you could try to get around that is to claim that the human attributes are represent the human person, and therefore you have a divine.
Why do you keep talking about a human person? I'm not talking about two. You did this with Jack too. It was told to you almost a dozen times. I'm talking about one person, bro.
Exactly. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that the understanding of the attributes, you yourself admit it. Take away the divine attributes for the divine person, because you had mentioned that in your 5-minute rebuttal. The simple question to you was, can a divine person, I'm talking about logically now, have all the human attributes and still not be a human person, but a divine person? And your answer was yes. Was it not?
Can you take away all the...
You are contending that if it is the case that they have divine attributes simultaneously, right, then that cannot be. That's the contradiction you're trying to say. Isn't that correct? That's your argument?
The latter thing is correct. Yeah, I forgot what you said before that, but yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say this, right? There's one person and they have two sets of incompatible attributes. That's a contradiction. Now, I don't want to spend too much more time on this.
Okay, no, well, hang on. If that's the case, you're the one. I'm rebutting your alleged two-person problem. Where every time I mention two-person, you deny two-person. You deny it.
What you're currently rebutting is the incoherence objection. You are not rebutting the two-person problem. Because again, with the incoherence objection, it doesn't involve two people. It involves one person. If you want to try and rebut the two-person problem, I can get the training wheels and give you a push.
So why, in other words, you're claiming two persons, are you not? In your two-person argument. Two-person
Yeah, that's right.
Alleged problem. Right. Mm-hmm. So what are the two persons?
Right. So previously, first of all, I have...
Persons? Is there not a human person and a divine person, sir?
Well, I think there is.
Person. What are the persons?
There's a human person, yeah.
The human person you denied.
Well, I didn't mention it in the incoherence objection. It's not relevant to it.
We're talking about the two-person problem once again.
Yeah, and I'll go through it with you, bud.
Your two persons. Because since the beginning of this debate, you were denying.
I'm gonna have to get some moderation here. It's like I can't even talk. He's so triggered.
Yeah, John, you need to let Tom respond.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, you were talking about the incoherence problem. I've reiterated many times what the problem is. You don't get it. We have limited time. I'll move on to the two-person problem. So I'll ask you a question right now. What constitutes personhood?
Yeah, you just avoided my question altogether. I asked you a very simple question. What are the two persons in your two-person alleged problem? You did not answer
Yeah,
that.
the divine person and an additional human person.
Right. And so where's the human person coming from? The Council of Chalcedon?
Council of
Or you
Chalcedon.
just want to
No,
make it up? You want to just
they
make up the
explicitly deny that. I'm saying it's an entailment of the view, though.
No. What constitutes a human person? Human attributes?
I'm asking you that.
I'm telling you that the divine person can have human attributes of which you affirm, sir. You did not say if you're going to have human attributes, you must be a human person. You did not say that, sir. In your argument, in your opening, you tried to imply that. I'm responding to it. This is actually my third attempt to respond to it. And when I get down to the nitty gritty of what is the human person you're talking about, where is it represented, whether in my argument or the Council of Chalcedon, you just pulled it up out of your rear.
It's not going to be in the Council of Chalcedon.
How do you establish?
My Converse, like he's so triggered out of his mind. I can't say anything, dude.
Yeah, John, you gotta let him respond. When you ask a question, when you ask a question, if you need clarification, if you need to make a clarification, wait till he responds to make the clarification.
Okay, the simple question, Converse, is where does the human person come from?
Yeah, I'll explain it to you. And I actually will even play you something and illustrate it under one view, because you don't want to define personhood. So maybe I'll just play this so that we can listen to it. So everybody listen to this.
Human being, right? I think of a human being, right? A human being, their soul is immortal in a sense, but yet they are, in a substance dualist understanding, they have a body that is perishable, a body that can die.
Yes. So you, John Lee, just invoked your view of substance dualism. And under substance dualism, the soul is the self, the identity, right? And the soul constitutes a person under substance dualism per R.T. Mullins, okay? So you, by your own lights, guess what? Guess what the divine person, Christ, guess what he gained? A human soul. Okay. So and by your own lights, that's a human person. So there's a human person by your own standard. Now what?
Sir. No, sir. You know, in that particular discussion, the context is a human being, not Jesus. That statement represented a person like you, a person like me, a human person. That the context of that statement was not a divine person, right? And so if you're going to try to say that statement representing a conversation about human persons, right, has any relation whatsoever, divine substance, substance dualism or not, has any relation to the incarnation, it's non sequitur. Are you trying to imply that we're talking about Jesus in that little soundbite? Of course not.
No, you were talking about you were talking about a human person, right? And under substance dualism, a human person is constituted by a soul. And guess what? By your own words, the divine person of Jesus Christ acquired an additional human nature, a human body, and, wait for it, a human soul. So by your own lights, there are two persons.
No, sir. I'll give you the problem that you're doing. All human beings have a human soul. Not all people with human souls are human beings. Do you understand that? This is the mistake you're making.
Are they persons?
Yeah, in the case of Jesus, he's a divine person with a human soul.
Are human souls persons?
So like I said, in that conversation,
are human souls persons?
I'm going to say it again. Not all persons with human souls are human persons.
I asked if a human soul is a person, not the other way around.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So in other words, what you're doing is you're saying that just because all human persons have a human soul, that necessarily all human souls must be a human person. That That doesn't follow, sir.
I'm
That's what
saying
trying to
human
tell you.
souls
This is what
under
you're trying to
substance
do.
dualism is sufficient for human person.
Once again, substance dualism has nothing to do with our discussion about the incarnation. The little soundbite that you think you have a gotcha, we're talking about people, human person.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, John. Good.
Yeah, so we're not talking about Jesus. You understand that? Jesus is
Yeah,
not
we're talking about the human soul that he acquired.
Okay. That doesn't make him a human. I just told you, a human soul does not make him a human person.
If a human soul, it means personhood, then he acquired a person. And now I'll ask you again for the umpteenth time. If you reject that, sir, what on your view is sufficient for personhood?
You're not. He did not acquire a person. That's what. Once again,
that's what you're saying. That's what I'm saying is the entailment.
And that's what I've been asking you from the beginning. Are you claiming that a human soul, a human nature, implies a human person? You said no.
No, a human person. Under your view, a human soul is a person. It is person. Look, Converse Contender, I have to appeal to the moderator. I've asked maybe half a dozen times, and I think it's a fair question for John Lee to simply tell me what is sufficient for human personhood.
John, it seems fair.
Okay.
It seems fair to ask the question. We got 7 minutes left.
We can move on, but let the record be shown that Tom contradicted himself by saying that having a human nature or soul in this case does not have to represent a human person, right? Okay. But later on, when he played the little soundbite, when we're talking about a human person, he's trying to say that a soul has to entail a human person.
Under substance dualism, yeah.
False. No, sir, that's false. Substance dualism, once again, has nothing to do with the incarnation. And
Look, can I just get an answer to my question, bro?
Yeah, John,
I mean,
John, yeah. I noted your point. If you would, and just in the interest of time, because we're about down to 6 minutes left, can you define what you think a person is so we can move forward?
Sure. A person represents
a human person. Human person.
Oh, a human person. Okay, a human person is a human being like you and I, right? Jesus is not a human person. Let's get that straight. This is what was established in 451 AD at the Council of Chalcedon. Jesus is not a human person. If you will look at the early literature concerning, they were very careful not to characterize Jesus as a human person.
What is this?
So when anytime you and I are talking about a human person, Tom, we are talking about human beings like you and I. We're not talking about anyone divine.
What is this?
Bro,
I'm asking you for what is the necessary and sufficient conditions for a human person. For example, a human soul, or a human soul body composite, or a human soul body composite, and a will.
Okay. So let me answer your question. What constitutes a human person? There are two views: a dichotomous view and a trichotomous view. A body, soul, or / spirit, or a body, soul, and spirit, right? And so those are the two views with regarding a human person.
Yeah. And well, everybody ready? Here's the knockdown. Guess what? Jesus acquired a human body, a human soul / spirit, and then we're done. You know what that constitutes? A human person.
Yeah, once again, I already told you the problem you're making, Tom. Just because all human persons have a body, soul, spirit does not mean all body, soul, spirits are a human person. I've told you this at least 4 times. You're not registering it.
You literally gave me the necessary and sufficient conditions that need to be present to constitute a human person, and they were met.
Right. Right.
So
And so
right,
what I'm
right.
saying,
So yeah, guess
so
what?
let me put
You
it this
fall
way.
victim to the two sons worry,
No,
also known as the
sir,
two-person problem.
sir.
What you think your Chalcedonian model entails Nestorianism, I've completely fulfilled my burden and shown that your view, John, is incoherent.
With respect to what you said, and in my question earlier to you, with Jesus having a human nature represented by a body, spirit, and soul, right? Now, I asked you, could that be a human, divine person? You, sir, answered yes. And so by answering yes, now you're changing your tune to say it must necessarily represent a human person. That's where your contradiction is.
Bro, you're mixing up the incoherence objection with the two-person problem,
and
dude.
so by your own answer, Tom, because when I asked you very simply, can a divine person hold all the attributes of a human nature, which represents implicitly body, soul, spirit? You answered
no,
yes.
that's not even the view of the Chalcedonian model.
Now you're saying, hang on.
Human nature is not tantamount to spirit, dude, or soul, or body.
Model, sir, the Chalcedonian model is such that one divine person, not human person, one divine person possesses a human soul, spirit, body. You cannot demonstrate that that's contradictory, right? In fact, you're contradicting yourself to say that the body, soul, and spirit must represent a human person.
This is the part where you're supposed to be rebutting, not coping. Were you aware of that, John?
Well, I think the record will reflect positions you have taken in this debate where you have contradicted yourself, because even as we speak right now, you're claiming that a human body, soul, and spirit must necessarily represent a human person, which you said didn't have to earlier.
No, in fact, I let you define it.
And I did define it. All human persons.
Yeah, go ahead, Converse. This is just Cope Hour. Go ahead.
However,
John finish his last
anyone that has if I may finish, anyone that has a human body, soul, or spirit is either
let me get one final word after this.
Or a human person. That's the answer.
Well, I was just going to say we have about a minute and 45 seconds left. If there's anything else before we get to the closings that you guys want to ask of each other?
Yeah, I have one last question I want to ask of John. So, as you know, John's view on his position in saying, hey guys, I don't see any contradiction with my model. Under John's own view, that's an argument from ignorance and fallacious. So he's not going to be able to show the coherence of his model that way. But about a week or two ago, I asked John another question about that. I said, okay, John, if that's the case, then what way could you show coherence? And he gave me an answer. He said, well, you could use a truth table. John, do you have a truth table to provide us so you can support your burden and show that your model is coherent?
Yeah, I gave you some facts that check yes. And so, with respect...
No, you said a truth table, bro.
So the question is very simple. Can a human... hang on.
You can't even answer it, dude?
What I'm saying is, can a person, right, who has a human nature, a human body, soul, spirit, can that person be a divine person? And the answer, according to me, is yes. And this is the funny part, Tom. According to you, the answer is yes. So
I don't think I said that. Look, I mean, he is a divine person. That's what the model says, right? So, but the main objection is with the attributes simultaneously existing, right? Whether he's divine or even human, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he was a human and he took on divine. None of that matters. Anyways,
all right, guys, we've come to the end of our time here. I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes to kind of give your closing thoughts of what you think transpired here, what you heard, what you didn't hear. And we're going to, since John started, we'll give John, we'll let you start this round, and that'll give Tom the last word since you got the advantage of opening up to the audience. Then we'll go over to Q&A. So if you got any questions, let me know in the chat. Go ahead, John, get us started on your 2 to 3 minute closing.
Okay, in this debate, it was my burden to defend the Council of Chalcedon, which states basically that Jesus is one divine person with two natures. And not only so, that a human nature can be held by a divine person, right? Tom actually agreed to that, whether he thinks so or not, and then he contradicts himself later. Now, Thomas Aquinas has a certain understanding. He kind of likened it to a third arm being grafted onto a person, right? Does that mean that the person or the arm represents that person? No, and yet that all the attributes of the arm is represented in that. So that's kind of a crude understanding of how he was reasoning. It's not without problems, of course, but it is still a very crude understanding. And so what I would say is that there is absolutely no contradiction to the attributes of a human having body, mind, soul, spirit to be a divine person. None whatsoever. Later on, the whole argument, the foundation of Tom's argument is that he must be a human person. And you will find that nowhere in the language, none whatsoever, in the creeds, in the councils, in any language, not William Lane Craig, only Nestorius would argue that Christ was two persons. And I'm not defending Nestorianism, and that's heretical. And you're arguing against a straw man if that's what you're arguing against, Tom. And that's all I have to say.
All right, John, thank you for that closing statement. We're going to kick it over to Tom for a 2 to 3 minute closing statement. Tom?
Wow, where do I even start? Well, start with the genesis of this. This was all John's idea. He made this happen. He wanted this. It was all his taunting. Said that he's been wanting a piece of me for a long time. Well, John, you got it and then some. I gave it to you, right? He was also described as slobbering to get to this debate, right? And then when he gets into the debate, his voice is more quiver than actual any substance, right? Now, John had his burden to show that the coherence of his model was there, and I, by his own standard, showed that he's not able to do that because it's fallacious by his own standard, right? And then I also showed that the other alternative that he previously gave me to show that a model is coherent is a truth table, and he didn't do that either. So by his own lights, he has completely failed at his end, right? He was unable to show coherence of his model. Now, when it comes to me, I provided two main objections. The first one, which is the incoherence objection, John, till the end, still doesn't understand it, right? He doesn't get it, right? The second objection I provided was the two-person problem, right? And after hemming and hawing and me providing under this and this and this, I finally got an answer out of John as to what is the necessary and sufficient condition for a human person. He gave it to me, and lo and behold, Jesus got that, right? And I'm not saying that Jesus is a human person. I'm saying he acquired a human person, right? Whether or not you want to call that Jesus or whatever is immaterial. Now, you just somehow trying to rebut that by saying, hey, that's all wrong because the Chalcedonian Creed says there was just one person. Yeah, that's the whole fucking point, right? Is that entailed within your model is a fuck up, right? And it involves two persons. So, John, you fucked up bad. You lose. Game over. Lights out.
All right, Tom, thanks for your closing statement there. We are going to open up to the Q&A from the audience. If you have any questions, please get them in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the short time we have. Let's go to the first questions that I got were super chats. We have super chat from Skinny Pete for $9.99. Says, I broke John Lee when I tricked him into telling me he wasn't married to that Scientologist woman that he checks up with. That's well, it was more of a comment. Looks like here. Let's see. A super chat from Haiti Braun says, "Thanks for your $9.99." Kick his fornicating ass, Tom. More comments aimed at you, John. There.
Excellent.
We
Excellent.
we have a question for John from Shane Sommer. Says, "How can a non-temporal object affect temporal objects?"
Substantively and essentially, Jesus is a divine being, and he is God incarnate. And so God is eternal. He's ase. He has all of these attributes that represent God. And so these additional attributes of humanity and so forth, it is not contradictory for a divine being such as Jesus to hold.
Okay, thanks for that answer, John. We're going to move to our next question. It's a super chat from Discordant Rhyme. Thanks for your $6.99 CA.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
It says Tom Rabbit is 100% Tom and 100% Rabbit. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you for the super chats because I was John has been talking an unbelievable amount of shit, right? And I'm just like, oh yeah, John's gonna John, right? And I did actually prepare for this. And admittedly, as if it was some sort of like knock on me. It's like, oh, you probably learned most of what you learned within the last week or two. Guess what? That's true. And that's even worse for you, John, right? But here is a clip of how John thought this debate was going to go, right? This is what he thought it was going to go like.
How can God be 100? How can he be 100% God and 100% man? How is that coherent? How can God be 100? How can he be 100% God and 100% man? How is that coherent?
And you know what's ironic is that is essentially the incoherence objection, the first objection, and he had no fucking clue how to deal with it. He still doesn't understand it till right now.
All right, thanks so much for that. We will move on to our next question, unless there's anything else there. We didn't have many questions for Tom, unfortunately, but we had one posed by Art. Says, is it a contradiction to be both one and many?
Is that for me?
I believe that was for Tom, actually.
Oh, okay.
Is it a contradiction to be one and many?
Yeah.
In the same way, in the same sense, I guess, yeah. And not the same way, in the same sense, no.
All right, thanks for that. Next question comes from... we had a super chat from Skinny Pete for $4.99. Thanks again, Skinny Pete. It says, John is doing the thing he did with Billy and not giving an argument for the view. He thinks he doesn't have a burden.
Well, first and foremost, of course, I have a burden. That's we both have a burden. And
Yeah, how'd you do on that burden, John?
I think that I sufficiently demonstrated, even having you agree that that a person with all the divine, all the human attributes can still be the divine person. And that's who we have in Christ. There is no contradiction.
All right, thanks, John. We'll move on. We did have another question from Ark. He says, I guess this would be for Tom. Says, personhood has a nature, Tom, not the other way around. It's more of a statement, but if you want to respond, you can.
I never said that a nature constitutes personhood. Never once said that.
Actually, you did, Tom.
Nope.
All right, let's move on. We have a question from, Discordant Rhymes had a comment, said, is John really trying to argue that Jesus is a fully human person, but not a person because he's a divine person, which would mean he's not fully a human person? John?
Yeah, as I stated from the beginning, and the Chalcedonian Creed, the language that's used from then in the Middle Ages all the way to now, Jesus was never a human person. He has human attributes. He had a human nature, but he's not a human. He's always been a divine person, even before the foundations of this world. Jesus remains a divine person. He will perpetually be a divine person, and he is never and will never be a human person. That is the understanding of the incarnation.
Yeah, it still doesn't get
All right,
it.
we had a question come in from Discovering Ancient History with Pat Lowinger. It says, the really important question for John Lee is, does Jesus have a soul, or was his godly substance or essence solely divine before his incarnation?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so yes, according to the creed, once again, Jesus had all the things that represents human, represents being human, and so that would be having a human soul. And so, like I said, Jesus had to have this in order, as I read Hebrews, I believe it was 2:17, that in so doing that he could atone for our sins, and so that he could also be a high priest. He could also be a sacrifice for us.
All right, thanks, John. For that, we will move on. Okay, so looks like we've run out of questions from the YouTube stream. But we will move to the questions that we have in the chat on Clubhouse. There were a lot of questions about where are we doing this? Is it on Discord? And we are actually on Clubhouse streaming this. So,
I don't know if let me read this. Tatted Tech says, replay gang. Also, Tom never reads my hilarious super chats. Wing flats are objectively better than drums. Fight me. Oh, I don't know about that. And then Grey Knight says, where is John's God now that he's been folded? Okay.
Okay, those must have just came in recently. I'm sorry if I missed those. We have, okay, so Grey Knight did also just ask, is John Lee a human person? $2 super chat. Thanks for that.
Yes, the answer is yes.
All right, that was quick and easy. We had a question come in from Wraith Knight. Says, Converse, ask John to demonstrate that a soul actually exists.
That might be a discussion for another debate. That is not the debate tonight, so I'd probably refrain from answering that question.
All right. We have, there was a lot of questions about moderation that I didn't want to jump in too much. Let's see. Is there anything that I'm missing that either of you guys have noticed as far as questions go? If not,
Ninja Bem says, for Converse, who won the debate, John or Tom? Oh, come on. You know he has to be impartial.
Yeah, I need to keep it nonpartisan here.
Just remember you're a theist, Converse. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah, just in case I might forget it, I'll keep it in mind, John. No, actually, one other thing is just that sometimes whenever you're moderating and like stuff, you're keeping up with time, you're not actually able to focus on the substance, so it wouldn't be a valuable opinion anyway. So let's just see if there's anything else here. Wraith Knight said, Converse, can you make John answer the question about the soul? I can't make him, but John, do you want to entertain that, or you want to stick with your first answer?
You can check the replay for my answer if you didn't get it the first time.
All right. If there's no other questions, let me just check the YouTube live stream. Ninja Bim, we had that one. Okay. Since
How many people? Oh, we have 151 people watching. That's so awesome, man. Thank you everyone for coming. Really, seriously.
Yeah, thanks Converse for moderating, and thanks Tom.
Yeah.
Well, I have,
all right,
I have to condemn you and denounce you, but I acknowledge your thanks. So. Okay, well, let's wrap it up there then.
Don't have anything else?
I think the real fun is always actually after the debate and when the floodgates are open. So I'm going to leave the stream on for a while and let's all enjoy. I'm going to take a break and like grab a cold one or something, but I'd like okay, Jack wants to come. Okay, Jane and Andricus. Okay, let's start there. And
I'm actually driving to get some food right now myself. I haven't eaten.
Come on up.
All right. Well, thanks for the conversation.
Mo said in chat that there was a super chat he put in that he asked if you could read it.
Sure.
Let me try and find it.
I see a super chat just came in from Tyler West, $4.99. John, can you explain how a person can be both creator and creature at the same time?
The divine person of Christ was never created.
Okay, I'm not sure if we got to Scorpion's question either. He sent in a $10 super chat. He says, Tom, thank you once again for exposing the dishonesty of internet Christians, presumably stripping John Lee of his title of saint and exposing the folly of religiosity. John is thoroughly defeated.
Yeah,
here's Mo's question.
His stature as saint is in jeopardy.
Yeah, so Trucker Philosophy says, for $10, thank you for that. Says, John, what happened to Jesus' human nature after his death?
Nothing. He didn't ditch it. He still has it.
All right, we'll open it up to the room now and just have an open conversation, unless there's anything else that needs to be added. Thanks, you guys, for the discussion.
Thank you, Converse, very much. I'm trying to invite people up. I invited Jack, all these people, and I don't want to invite Cutie Pie. Sorry, I don't think you're right for this. Jack, though, can you accept it? Maybe I have to rejoin. Hang on a second.
John, is your ass red from that spanking?
I have to make a mod, and then I will rejoin.
Is the John making the arguments?
Of course not.
Sweet.
Rambled on.
You guys missed a super chat. I'm embarrassed.
I can still read it. Who is it?
I'm still waiting for the argument, John. I told you I was going to come back, and I'm here for it. So go ahead and just give the argument, or just concede that you dodged, ducked, dipped, dived, dodged, like you did with Billy. You shirked the burden You came in here pumping your chest. You thought it wasn't going to happen, and you got embarrassed. That was the most obscene beating of any Christian on this app I think I've ever witnessed. Your friends should be ashamed. Matt Adams and Johnny Hoff should disown you. James is tired should block you again. Like it's complete garbage.
Oh,
I
come
can't
on.
believe
I
how
think
bad
you're
you
going
did.
too far. Come on. Jane, can you try inviting Jack?
Yeah,
I'm on the road, but thank you for sharing, Delano.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought, John. Don't worry, I'll be here all day, buddy.
Was it basically just the Bible said so and God revealed it to me or something like that? Or some
No, it
council
was
dude
like
said so?
Tom gave many cogent arguments. And John was just like, ask you a question about it, not defend his view at all. It was pathetic. It was absolutely horrifying how bad he did.
Not a single argument. He just kept trying to ask questions, and then he interrupted. He got so triggered, he kept over talking, where Converse had to call him down 3 or 4 times to, and had to get him to answer a question. He wouldn't let Tom get a word out. It's just typical of John.
At one point, he tried to red herring into some conversation about what William Lane Craig means or something like that. Like, it was just, it was garbage.
Is this a cope room or what's going on here?
No. The point is, I want to make a fool out of you.
Here, Jack wants to sit.
Yeah, I want to get clear on.
Your wind is bad though, Jack. Can you block your mic?
I want to get clear on a couple of points.
Quiet.
Because I didn't hear the whole debate. So the first point is, I'm trying to understand. Well, I guess there's 3 points. So the first one is, I want to understand, how did John...
Jack, the mic's not that great yet.
Yeah, your mic sounds horrible.
How did John explain...
Oh, we can't hear you now.
You can or you can't?
Now you're a little better.
How did John explain... I mean, is it breaking up or what?
It's just a lot of background noise, and you're muffled. You sound like you're moving in and away. There's wind. It's just like all around kind of shitty.
Let me just try restarting the connection. Hold on.
You sound good there.
It's fine anyway, because John says he can't listen for the next couple minutes because he's ordering.
Is it better now?
Not really.
Just so you know, he's not listening at the moment, Jack.
He's not listening? Oh, then I'll wait.
Yeah, just wait just a minute or two. He said he's ordering some food.
All the shit talking, all the slobbering he said he was doing. Where's Matt Adams? How is he going to defend this? This is pathetic.
Oh, they'll find a way. Come on, they're not like, agents that are interested in like actual objective.
They're professional copers.
Yeah.
They're professional.
Yeah, there's a cope room coming soon.
I have to give John the win here. I mean, I could properly steelman his argument.
All right, let me. Wait, I want to ask you about that, Matt. So, can you explain to me, because I didn't hear this part. John's view, right, is that when you say something is coherent, where coherent means that there's no contradiction, that's an appeal to ignorance, right?
There's no contradiction.
Is he breaking up?
I don't know.
He did. All I heard him say was no contradiction.
Yeah, so that's on John's view is an appeal to ignorance, right?
It could be. I don't know, but the fact is,
you could be.
You don't know. Didn't Tom bring up that? Didn't Tom bring up that point?
No,
in
Tom.
The debate?
Tom failed to address John's opening argument.
Wait, no.
He didn't even have an opening argument.
I didn't ask you that. I didn't. Wait. Why are you bringing that? Wait.
I mean, I think he made a good opening. Other than his.
Am I not audible?
No, he's just talking over you. He's triggered.
Yeah.
No, trust me, it's not triggered. I actually think John easily won this debate.
Shut your fucking mouth.
Well,
while I'm talking.
Jack, you don't need to get
shut your mouth while I'm talking. Yeah,
bro, just let him speak, Matt. Just let him speak, and then you can take turn.
Okay.
Yeah, shut your fucking mouth. Yeah, so the question is, shut your mouth.
You think you can actually make
So
me
the
shut my
question,
mouth, Jack?
shut your
Come
mouth.
on, guys.
You think you
Come
could?
on.
Look,
Mods.
Converse, are you still modding this damn thing or not?
No, his
Yeah,
duties
can
are
you prevent
done.
this fucking
Okay,
idiot
I'm
from
not gonna have a
over talking me?
I'll
Is there
just
a
make
mod
my
here?
own room, and you can come in
Is
there,
there a
Jack. And
mod
you're not
here?
going to talk to me like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you a spite
Fucking
room was
idiot.
You
coming.
understand that, Jack?
Yeah.
Louise.
Yeah, you
Okay.
wouldn't say this to my
So,
face. You understand that, Jack?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he would
Oh shit!
absolutely
Oh
say that to
shit!
your face.
You would say it to
So
my face.
I asked this fucking idiot, right, if Tom brought up the point that on John's view and incoherence, a statement that something is coherent is an appeal to ignorance, right? Now, did you make that point, Tom? Since
Yes,
Matt
I
said he
did.
didn't hear it.
Yeah, I even
Oh, so
played.
you didn't. So Matt didn't even listen to the fucking debate, right? Because when I
even
asked him,
played.
did Tom say that? Yeah, did you hear me just ask Matt? Did you bring up that point? And he said, I don't know. And then he started to overtalk me and say stuff about how you didn't address John's point as if that was an
Right.
answer to my fucking question. Yeah, all right. So you didn't even listen to the fucking debate, you fucking idiot. Right. So that's the first thing is, because what I don't understand is, why did John say at the end that the incarnation, the doctrine of the incarnation, is coherent, right? If he thinks that's an appeal to ignorance, and by his
That's a
own
good
life,
question.
fallacious.
I think he was so just dead to rights on that. He never even addressed it.
Yeah, and so that fucking idiot Matt doesn't have an explanation for that, does he? You have an explanation for that, Matt? Is he still fucking here?
Yeah, he's here, Jeff.
He's just quiet.
Yeah, he's just fucking quiet. Didn't even listen to the fucking debate. All right. Well, I'll since he's decided to shut down because he's not going to be allowed to overtalk, I'll just wait until John comes back.
Well, I, for one, am very glad that John Lee showed up to get bodied like that. That was like a Call of Duty 1v1 on Rust, but it was like 10-0.
I mean, just unbelievable.
John, are you back?
They might need some like refractory time here. I mean, I think they might need some time alone. This is like John, and he just needs like 5 minutes alone to like sit with his hands in his lap. You know, he needs time.
Can we get Haiti and Danny up here?
Danny can't come. Haiti is up already.
Oh, my thing is lagging.
Congratulations, Tom.
Yeah,
Thank
Tom,
you.
how many times are you going to run around the block for your victory lap?
I've never seen such a savage display in my life.
Also,
Tom,
Haiti, I will take my Starbucks.
You got
I specifically like.
Go ahead, Bill.
Tom, I specifically like the Jake surprise. It's nice that you
Oh, I didn't
contacted
hear
Jake.
that. I didn't hear that part. So what was the Jake surprise?
Well, no, he was just trying to, you know how in one conversation with you were saying that you don't understand the very model that you're scheduled to defend, right? And then John was like, I don't know about that. And then you said, ask Jake. Ask Venus. Right? He's like, and then John's like, oh yeah, Jake would know. Well, guess who went and asked Jake? I did. And he said,
Can you play? Can you play the clip?
No, it was a private call. I didn't record
call,
it.
Okay.
No.
Oh, what
Did
did
That
he
was like
say?
the person that he appeals to, just completely turning on him.
And what did Jake say? What did Jake say?
Tomer?
Sorry, what did Jake say?
Oh,
He
we
just
can
said,
hear you,
yeah,
Jake.
like, you're right, Jack.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
wait? Did
Yeah.
Tom run away? I mean,
Wait,
John.
Tom, did you? No, he has to get food or something. Did
He's
you
He
getting
ran away.
food.
Yeah, right.
Did you wait? Did you play any clips? Wait, I heard the one. I heard the one at the end where you recorded what he was saying today. But did you play any other clips? Because I didn't hear any of the sound
Yeah, he did the
clips.
argument from ignorance clip.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
can you
played
play that clip?
him. Huh?
Can
You
you
want me to
play
play
it
that
again? Because I
again?
missed the clips. Yeah, just any
Oh,
clips
okay.
you played besides the one at the end. Can you
Let me
play just
see.
because I
Yeah, I
missed
could do
out
that.
on that?
Welcome back, Delano. I thought we lost you forever.
Oh, I'm only back to shame, John Lee.
You are claiming that
Delano
there
will never
is
be gone because he's
a
always in our
lack
hearts.
of demonstrated provided contradiction. Therefore, true. I tried to say that's an argumentum ad ignorantium.
Is that the only one you played besides the one at the end?
I think I played another one. Hold on, so what was it? I played the one where he talks about substance dualism.
Yeah, wait, can you play that?
Yeah.
Like, I think of a human being, right? A human being, their soul is immortal. And like, I think of a human being, right? A human being, their soul is immortal in a sense, but yet they are, in a substance dualist understanding, they have a body that is perishable, a body that can die.
Yes. Oh, good. So what was can people tell me what was like the most devastating moment?
Yeah, I can tell you what that was.
10 minutes.
I can
Oh,
tell you
Yeah,
what
What
that
were
was.
they?
Oh, let me tell you what I thought was just
3
completely
headshots.
embarrassing.
All right.
When Tom gave his I don't know what did y'all call it, openings where it was uninterrupted, he basically quoted and rebutted every single thing John said. It was like a list of like 6 things. Like, it was so astute and precise. He was just dissecting him, slicing and dicing like a fucking like finely chopped pizza.
This was
Just
Tom's
ridiculous.
opening. Was this Tom's
Yeah,
opening statement or?
because I think
No,
John
the
went first, and
rebuttal.
then
The
Tom
rebuttal.
addressed everything he said. It was bad.
No, well, there was a
And what
bunch
was
of
the other
hemming and
headshot?
hawing, and I
Well,
kept.
when he played the clip of John, what he just did, that was pretty damning.
Also, when John gave all the conditions for being a human person,
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Tom was like, "Okay, well, all of those 3 are met."
I want to ask John about that because it really seems like he doesn't even understand, right? What he said, like what he was committed to by what he said, right, Tom? That's one of the things I want to ask John about.
I have no idea what's going on in his head. I have no
that
idea.
was very bizarre.
The way I took it.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, no. The way I took it is, I thought John was saying something like, "God can be a human plus." Like, God can envelop all the humans' traits and then also have his godly traits. But then
No, but
Tom already refuted that earlier, so I don't know what the hell.
yeah, I
Like,
mean the point was Tom asked him, "What are the necessary and sufficient conditions for one to be a human person?" And then he asked him what, and so then he enumerated the conditions that Jesus had, which met those conditions, and so therefore that means that Jesus is a human person.
What he took on, right? So the divine person took on a human
That's right,
body,
a second person,
human soul, and did John say something else? Like spirit, which is like spirit / soul are kind of like synonymous. And yeah, that constituted him taking on a human person. That's 2 persons.
Yeah.
So and then he denied it was a human person.
Yeah.
Right. After telling me this is a sufficient conditions for a human person, Oh, Jesus had that. Oh, that's not a human person. Unbelievable.
I think that was the killer headshot, but the other ones were also really satisfying, like the Jake one and the argument from ignorance one. But that
Yeah,
that
Now
was the killer.
notice, if you look in the audience, none of the saints are there. Did they all go start a private cope room?
They're probably in a cope
Also,
room.
Does
Wait, but
any
Cope
Christian
Room.
want to come up and defend John Lee?
no one in the
I
I
invited
have
comments
to.
Dancing
in
on
the
Strings. If he
live
goes
I
chat
have
were
to.
really defending John either. Right? There's very few people who thought John was doing well.
I have to go soon. I have like something to do for uni, but is John back by any chance?
He's not coming back.
They're
I'm
all
gonna
gone,
gonna
Billy.
Oh,
predict he is.
yeah, I
He was
doubt he'll be
so
coming back for a long
thoroughly
time.
humiliated and destroyed. He's
There's
not coming back.
yeah, there's 3
Well,
points. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, I gotta go now anyway, but I just wanted to ask when John gets back, can you ask him from me? This is my question for John. John, who do you think won the debate? I really want
And let's
him
see what he
to,
says.
yeah. But I wish I could stay, but I really gotta finish this essay. So
Okay,
peace out,
Billy.
everyone.
Billy, you should feel
See you,
good that he
Billy.
did the same thing with Tom that he did with you.
My favorite
Just offered
part,
nothing.
at
Oh
one
yeah,
point he was responding, I think it was misspoke, but at one point responding to Tom, he said, not all human persons are human persons. Did anybody catch
yeah,
that?
I watched that whole thing on
LOL.
YouTube.
Crazy.
You
So
know, it
Matt
was
got mad
so.
at Jack? I'm sorry.
Now, what
Go
was
ahead.
the part where people were saying that he can no longer be called a saint? Is that just from shame, or was there a particular
I don't know
point
if
in
that's
it?
true. I mean, Matt says that Johnny think they're all happy, so I don't know. But Jack, there was this one part. It was really weird. Like, so when I was showing that under like the Chalcedonian model, like an entailment of it, like is that there are two persons, right? John's response or rebuttal, it was the weirdest thing. His rebuttal was really, he goes, well, to rebut that, the Chalcedonian model says there's only one person. What was that?
Yeah, I heard that. I mean, I thought it was like, it made it sound like to me that like he didn't actually understand your argument or his own argument. Like that he didn't understand what you like. He didn't understand what you were saying about the two-person problem, what that actually meant. It just seemed like he was confused.
Unbelievable.
Can any
Daniel, did you
Christian
hear it?
please come up and defend John Lee's view? I know there's somebody down there.
Daniel, did you hear it?
Yeah, I did hear it, and I thought it was peculiar. It didn't seem like he put forward any coherent model. He just said something like, not all X are Y, but all Y can be X, or something that I wasn't quite following.
Like when he said that, Tom was like, "Yeah, that's the problem." Don't like it's almost like he didn't understand that there was that Tom was presenting this contradictory aspect of these two natures in one person that he didn't understand that he was getting caught up or confused as to what the two-person problem actually was, which made it seem like to me that like he was just completely lost, that he didn't understand what was going on.
Jason, he actually said in his opening statement, he's just winging it.
I
Yeah,
want to
didn't
pursue
prepare.
3 things with him. So the first one was the point I was bringing up to Matt, which is how can he say that there's no contradiction if, on his own view, to do that is just to appeal to ignorance?
Right, hilarious.
Second, I want to get clear on this point at the end, where you asked him for the necessary and sufficient conditions for a human person, and it turns out Jesus met them, so Jesus is a human person. Like, it just doesn't seem like he even understood what he was committed to. Jesus acquired it. The second person of the Trinity acquired human personhood in addition to the divine personhood. But now the third thing, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question, I showed you that article on the incarnation in the IEP. and they that was a good article. I don't know how much of it you looked at, but one of the things they do is enumerate what are like the main sort of strategies in the literature to try to make sense of the Chalcedonian doctrine, to preserve its coherence, because there's an apparent contradiction. And so I think they list basically 4 main approaches, with a few different like sub-approaches within those. Do you even have any idea which theory he was adopting?
Like a
I think
Christology?
Like, in other words, if you look at the article, it'll say one thing they can try to do is reject the law of non-contradiction, but they argue that that's not really tenable. Then he goes into the other strategies, and one is adopt relative identity. Another is kenotic. Our theories like kenotic theory.
It's interesting. I don't see
Where
this
you
article being sent to me, and it's not ringing a bell. Weird.
Oh, I linked it in this. Well, okay. Here, I'll show you. Well, here, I'll link it in the main chat.
Okay.
You see it there at the bottom? So they talk about different strategies. So one approach is relative identity. Another approach is to sort of reconsider the properties required for being truly human or truly divine. So kenotic theory is going to be one version of that approach.
Oh, he had that in his opening, and I addressed it, and then just never talked about it again.
Okay. All right, yeah, because I just wanted to know what his actual theory was. So you're saying that did he actually adopt the kenotic view? Is that what he claimed?
He invoked it in his opening, and then like right after where I had the 5-minute response, I addressed it, and I kind of said I don't even see how that really helps you, because if you're saying he like emptied himself of his divinity, well, then he's no longer God, and if he didn't, then he still had the attributes, and so nothing really changes, right? So I don't even know and he never brought it up again.
Well, I guess I can just try to ask him.
I think it sounded like he was adopting a view called I'm trying to remember how you say it, diaphysitism. If you want, I'll put a link in the chat to it. But basically, he wants to reject the two persons thing and say 2 natures, right? But only in one unique person.
It's called diatheletism.
Oh no, that has to do with the will. Diatheletism is a doctrine about there being 2 wills in God.
Or about 2 natures, right? Because see, John wanted to reject their 2
natures is diaphysitism.
That's what I'm talking about.
Diaphysitism. Yeah, but he's saying that he was talking about diatheletism.
Is that right, John?
No, you guys were talking about kenosis. I didn't accept it as far as like Philippians 2. To Tom's point about Jesus not being omniscient and yet he's God, I do believe in that particular those passages that Jesus is not claiming not to be omniscient. I do believe that Jesus is omniscient as a divine person.
Wait, so you don't think that Jesus gives up his omniscience when he becomes human?
That's correct.
Okay, so you don't subscribe to kenotic theory.
No, I do not.
Wait, so why did he invoke it in the beginning?
I mentioned in the passage that Tom brought up about Rosh Hashanah and the wedding feast and that kind of a thing. I don't know if you were here for that, Tom.
He mentioned kenosis in his opener, Jack.
Yeah, but why did he? If how are you?
Two different things.
Yeah, he's asking you why did you mention it in the opening? My God.
If it's not the
I don't recall, but no, I think I mentioned.
Yeah,
stuff
he
like
winged his
adoptionism,
opening, so he's not going to
Gnosticism.
remember.
I do remember lifting some heresies and how that led to the council in 451.
John, do you think you won that debate?
I'll just let people decide.
Well, I want to get clear. I want to get clear on a few things, John. Although I may get interrupted, but so just to start with, I want to understand why at the end you said that you that there is no contradiction or there's nothing incoherent about the Orthodox doctrine of the incarnation, when on your own view that's to appeal to ignorance.
No, I did. No, Tom played a clip about appealing to ignorance. He's trying to say that I'm trying to put the burden on him. That's not what I did here. I actually
No, that's
appealed
not what
to
I'm
what's
saying.
called
No.
in any case, I never in this debate did I appeal to ignorance. I did not even try to shift the burden of proof.
So when you say that the
my
doctrine
argument
is coherent, when you say the doctrine is coherent, that means that it entails no contradictions, right?
correct. Now,
yeah. Now, how do you establish
what I did to support it was to appeal to what's called the communicatio idiomatum. You probably heard of it, Jack.
I don't think so.
Well, that was the meat of my argument in supporting coherence. I also appealed to Thomas Aquinas his rendition of as well.
You think just saying a Latin phrase defended your argument?
Johnny, how's his horses here?
But I'm trying to understand, how do you establish that a position how do you establish that a position commits one to no contradiction?
Yeah. So in other words, the understanding is visually, if you could picture like a building, right, with the pinnacle on there, and there's Christ in the middle, and you have a divine nature on the right, and you have human nature on the left, and it's pointing toward the person. So
he's not tracking.
In other words,
the
nature, right, are not do not affect each other. The nature of the human nature is pointing toward Christ. The divine nature is pointing toward Christ.
He's not even tracking, Jack.
Through analogy.
Jack, he's just describing a model, but the question is
there's no contradiction there.
Yeah, you're just describing a model, but the question is, how are you coming to the conclusion that that model entails no contradiction?
Yeah, that's the question.
Because the human nature and the divine nature are not addressed in terms of each other. That's what that represents.
You're just re-describing the model.
You guys are trying to say it must be considered together.
What?
John, you normally you have said in the past, right, that it's been pointed out to you that to just say something contains no contradictions is just to appeal to ignorance, right?
I'll give you an example, Jack.
He can't even say it now. I'm glad
Why didn't you answer his question?
I'm glad I clipped it because I suspected he was trying to weasel out of this too.
You have a square. All of a sudden, it obtains a circle, right? And now you have a square and circle put together. All the attributes of a circle are there. All the attributes of a square is there, right? But the personhood has nothing to do with the circle. The personhood has everything to do with the square. The
Oh my
square
God.
is
You're describing a contradiction. What are you doing?
the square is necessary, but the circle is contingent.
A circle
And so
cannot.
that's the understanding.
A circle cannot possess all of the necessary attributes of a square. It's not possible.
But I don't know what the answer to my
But
question
that's not
is.
what I said.
How is that an
Yeah,
answer
answer
to my
Jack's question.
question?
So in other words, the circle has nothing to do with the square. The square has nothing to do with the circle. And so when you ask,
you're just describing
does
how you think it makes
this
sense. But that's irrelevant. The
does this
question
have
is, considering how you think it
all
makes
the
sense,
attributes?
what's your justification
Yeah,
for
I'm
why
trying to
there's
tell
no
you.
contradiction?
Does this person or being have all the attributes that are necessary for a circle? Yes, it does. Does it affect, or is it in any way contradictory to all the attributes that he has for divinity? The answer is no. And
You're
so
just
if you can kind
describing
of
a
visualize
circle
it that
cannot
way,
have all the necessary attributes of a square.
it doesn't have to. That's
Jack,
what
what do you think is going
You
on?
just said that.
What do you think's happening right
No,
now?
no. So in other words, the person has nothing to do with the circle. The person has everything to do with the square.
What
The
is he
square
talking about?
is a divine person, a divine nature that has existed, that
Did he hit his
simply
head?
added a circle,
You're just giving
right?
an analogy about a model. The question is, what makes you think that the model contains no contradiction? You're just going to give us the
I
model
just
again. We're
explained it to
asking you,
you.
why
I
do
just
you...
explained it to you.
Yeah,
The
you've
Okay, you
explained the
just said the
model.
thing.
The question is, what
the
makes you think
addition,
that the model...
the addition of the circle has no bearing or effect on the square whatsoever.
Jack, what is this? What is this,
It's
Jack?
not a
What do you make of
mixture.
this?
It's not a blending.
He's broken.
Yeah, so John, did you hear the question that I asked you?
Yeah, did you hear my answer?
Yeah, it didn't address my question, so that makes me think you didn't hear the question. So, what was the question that I asked you?
You were talking about the human nature and the divine nature, were you not, Jack?
Nope.
Oh my
All
God.
right, then if you could repeat your question, because that's what I thought you were asking about.
Yeah, my question is about the general claim that some position is coherent. You're on record as saying that to do that, unless you have a proof, I guess, right, is just to appeal to ignorance. Do you recall that?
Gave you the model. I just gave you the model, Jack.
Yeah, I didn't ask you that.
You're asking me about whether this model is coherent or not, whether there are any contradictions. I gave you
I
the model in a visual way.
said anything about the model.
God, he must really
You're
feel cornered
asking-
because he's
you
not
asked
even
me-
trying.
hang on.
He's trying to not even touch
Wait
it,
a
Jack.
minute. You're asking me if my model is coherent, are you not, Jack?
Nope.
Oh my goodness. Then what are you asking?
I'm asking how one establishes that a position is coherent without appealing to ignorance.
I just did.
What's the general? Is there only one?
Are you
way?
what kind of answer do you want? You want like a truth table answer or something? Is that what you want?
Well, would that suffice?
From my understanding, if all the boxes are checked, there is no a yes, then there is no contradiction.
Yeah, but where was
So,
the truth table?
I provided it in an informal way.
Wait. So you're
No, you didn't.
so,
I actually did. I said, does having a human nature, right, contradict the divine person? It does not. Then that checkbox already avoids the contradiction there. And you even
Providing a
signed off
truth
on it.
table in
You
an
might want to
informal
check
way
the
is like
replay, Tom.
might be a contradiction. So
A truth table with one box?
I don't really understand what you're saying, John. So, are you saying
Jack, you
that
got
the
a
only
mouthful,
way?
man. Come on.
Are you saying that the only way you can establish that a proposition or set of propositions is coherent without appealing to ignorance is to do something with the truth table?
What I did do, Jack, is to demonstrate that what Tom was claiming to be a contradiction was not a contradiction. That's
I
what
didn't
I did
ask you that.
establish.
I didn't ask you that. Did you not hear my question?
Yeah, you're asking me how do you establish coherence without appealing to ignorance is your question.
Yeah, so how do you do
By examining all the considerations with respect to the proposition and to laying it out. Now, did I do that formally? I did not, right? However, I did at least address what was claimed to be a contradiction, and that's exactly what I did.
No, I'm not talking about you pointing out that some putative contradiction is not a contradiction, right? Maybe you did that, right? But that's not the claim that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a claim that some contradiction that was presented, right, was in fact apparent rather than real, right, which you might have been able to show. You made a stronger claim than that. You said that the doctrine is coherent. That's not the same claim as that some putative contradiction is merely apparent and not real, which maybe you could have supported, right? I'm talking about the stronger claim that the doctrine is coherent.
The way I think that I explained it was in the visualization I tried to show you. This is what you have. You have a divine person represented as a square. It has all the divine attributes that represent this divine person. Now you have a circle. You add it to the square. You don't mix it. You don't blend it. It's not a composite. It's not nothing. It's added to. So now it's attached to. And so the question would be, does this divine person, right, which is the square, have now everything that constitutes, being human? And the answer is yes. It has circularity. It has all of the equidistant from the sun. All of these things, right? And you could even add color to these objects. And so if it requires a yellow circle, is the circle yellow? Yes. So it checks all the boxes. And so does it affect the square? It does not. The square is there, has always been there. Does it affect some sort of being necessary? No, it's contingent. The square is necessary. And so all of these types of, differences, there's no contradiction. There's only a contradiction when you try to say that the square is a circle simultaneously, which
Yeah,
it's
because
not.
in what way in this analogy are they the same person?
In other
John,
words, the personhood, hang on, the personhood is in essence the square. So is the circle a person? No, it's never a person. That's what I've been
But
saying the
in
whole
what way
time.
is the circle
He's
contained
saying.
within the square? If it's not
It's
a
just all it has to do is just be attached to it, James.
It's a
Does
John,
he
circle
not
are
realize he's
attached
just
to a
repeating the
square.
claim? Like, you're just giving
okay,
analogies that describe the claim. You're not showing how
John.
it's not a contradiction.
John, are you trying to say that the person Jesus is somebody with all the human attributes and then God attributes added to it, like your example with the third arm? Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what Thomas Aquinas actually argued.
And
in
is that what you're
Summa Theologiae or something like that.
is that what you're arguing?
That was part of my argument, and as such, that this attachment, this
Yeah, like a third
third
arm.
arm,
He
so to
adds
speak, right?
godliness to this human
That has
body.
all the qualities of an arm.
Right, but when he adds godliness, one of the necessary and sufficient conditions of being a god is being omniscient, right?
So it's
So it's
just like
not like
asking
adding
what
on
are
an
what are
arm.
the necessary what are the necessary
That's two
conditions
people. You're
of the
describing two
arm
people.
or the circle, or in this case the human person? It would simply be body, spirit, and soul. The problem that Tom was saying was that body, spirit, and soul, right, must entail a human person. When actually, if you watch the debate carefully, he agreed very early on that it can entail a divine person and a divine person only.
Look, God, John, does God to be God, does it mean you have to be omniscient?
Would you like to address my point?
Can you answer
If
my
you don't answer
question?
the fucking question, like I don't like, how do you people hold on to this view? Like I don't understand. Like what does it mean to be a Christian? It's
I'm
fucking
just trying to
insane.
get no, but I'm
This
still
whole
trying to get
attaching the
clear.
arm thing makes sense.
I'm just trying to get clear on how one established. I still haven't gotten an answer to the general question, which is when there's a proposition or set of propositions, right, and one wants to say that affirming that proposition or set of propositions is not incoherent. That proposition or set of propositions is not incoherent, which is to say that affirming it commits one to no contradiction. What is the procedure by which one establishes that without appealing to ignorance? Because in the past you've said that's an appeal to ignorance, right? When somebody says, oh, that's incoherent. Sorry, that's coherent. You said that's an appeal to ignorance, right? And so you stopped making claims that certain positions were coherent.
I think
Right?
the model that I just laid out, Jack, was just a simple square and circle situation. Demonstrates coherence.
Yeah. So what was that? Is that supposed to be an answer to my question? Do you
Yeah, I
understand
think
what
it
my
was an
question
answer.
is? Yeah, no, it
I
wasn't.
repeated it already.
Yeah, you didn't hear my question. So my question is not about your model, right? Not about whether you think you have a coherent model or not. I'm asking you, how is it that when somebody says a set of propositions, right, or a proposition, right, is coherent, how is it that you demonstrate that, right, which is to say, prove it,
I already answered
right?
you two or
Support.
three times, Jack.
Did anybody
Truth
hear his
table. Remember
answer?
that?
Okay, so
Remember the
now
truth
explain to
table
me how
answer?
does a truth table establish it?
From my limited understanding, it is such the case that when a truth table is constructed and all the boxes are checked yes, then it demonstrates that there is no contradiction. That's my understanding.
I don't get it.
Do you disagree with my statement, Jack?
Well, I
He's
don't
asking for
understand
the
it.
mechanism that's transferable between claims that you can use to show that it's not an argument from ignorance, as put by you in your previous statements, John. What is the mechanism?
Have you given us a
When
truth
is that
table?
appealing to ignorance?
Presumably you have some kind of deductive proof, right? Whereby you can show that I mean I don't know how you would do this, but you'd have to somehow be able to show that every entailment, right, of every claim and every conjunction of claims that one is committed to in the set of propositions being affirmed, somehow you can show that none of them contradict one another.
Yeah, I think
He's
it could be
asking you to
generated.
be omniscient, John.
So you'd have
Go ahead,
to
John.
you'd have to actually presumably bring out every entailment of every claim being affirmed.
Yeah,
Right,
I think
John?
it's, from my understanding, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. So have you shown every entailment? Can you itemize every entailment of the doctrine of the incarnation?
I think it was sufficient.
Was that the question that I asked you?
Yeah, versus zero contradictions on the other side. That's what we have.
Yeah. What was the question I just asked, John?
Did I provide every entailment? That's what you asked.
No, I didn't ask you that. I asked, can you?
From my understanding, I think it's possible.
I didn't ask you whether it was possible. I want to know, right? Like, do you have a ballpark figure as to how many entailments there are?
I would imagine it depends on the proposition itself.
Look, you can do it or you can't, John. Yes or no? Your silence is just you saying you can't do it.
it seems to me that a doctrine like the incarnation probably has many thousands of entailments at the very least. Do you disagree with that?
You turtling up, John? Have you gone in your shell?
Probably not.
Probably not. How many do you think there are?
Yeah. So Jack, I mean, if anyone has a debate with the position of coherence versus incoherence, I think the way you're setting it up is that position cannot be supported because of the innumerable number of entailments to demonstrate coherence.
This is your
Is that what you're
standard,
arguing?
John. Your argument from ignorance claim.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
is that your position?
Well, your standard is, right? I mean, it seems like that's got to be your standard because otherwise it's an appeal to ignorance.
But now you're avoiding the question, Jack.
I don't see what difference it makes, right? The question is, right? My
you're not answering
understanding
the question.
is, yeah, that's fine. I don't
The answer is
understand the
yes.
relevance of that question. So your standard is, right, that one should not affirm that some set of propositions is coherent because that's an appeal to ignorance. Now, it seems to me that there's probably some procedure by which you could enumerate all the entailments of a given set of propositions, right? And maybe you could, do some kind of algorithmic procedure whereby you could, see if every conjunction, every conjunction of entailments of that set of propositions are compatible, right?
Jack, how many entailments do you think there are in all bachelors are unmarried?
I have no idea.
Do you think by asking someone else to comply to your standard it somehow
do you think
validates
it's
it? No. No. You're not going to try to hold his feet to the fire regarding the ridiculous claim you made, right?
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, go ahead and turtle up, bitch. Go ahead and turtle up. Go ahead. Go ahead, eat your lunch. Get your blood sugar up, John. I bet you need it. Fucking clown.
Thank you for your
Goddamn
permission.
joke. Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, if he's going to run away, I'm just going to bring up the point when you come back, John.
Clown.
Yeah, I don't have a problem having this discussion with you, Jack. I just don't. I'm not gonna deal with this.
That's
this
fine.
interference.
The fucking ball's on you to try to get him to use your ridiculous claim to defend your bachelor statement. Are you fucking kidding me?
Why wouldn't you just retract your statement, Joe? I don't understand. You see how, like, what mountain you have to
Well, I
climb now,
think
right?
I think there is a problem with him retracting it though, because I take it that that was the proposition he was supposed to be defending in the debate. And if he retracts it, that just means he's not affirming the proposition that he agreed to defend.
He doesn't want the
Right.
burden. That's
Now,
why
what he
he's going to
can
hold.
do, what he could retreat to, is a different position, which would be something like no putative contradiction that, you know, the doctrine of the incarnation has been accused of entailing is in fact entailed by the doctrine, right? And so then somebody can, like Tom, could bring forward putative contradictions, and he could sort of show how in fact he's not committed to anything that entails that, right?
Yeah, that'd be like the normal debate then.
Yeah, that would be like the normal way to do it. So far, no one has shown that this doctrine is not coherent.
I mean, first he's gonna have to retract his statement,
He
but
will
we'll
have
see
to
if that
retract the
happens.
statement, which means that he can't really affirm what I take it he was committed to affirming in the debate.
Yeah, that's right.
It sounds like to me, Jack, that any debate involving coherence, the positive position already lost even before it began. Is that correct?
Sorry, say that
Under
again?
your standard.
It seems to me that what you're saying is that any debate on coherence, the positive position already loses even before they even begin the debate.
Well, that might be right. Like it seems to me that the only way it seems to me likely that the only way you're really going to be able to defend something, that anybody is going to be able to defend something like such a claim or set of claims is coherent, is just to say, let's look at all the objections that have been brought forward, and let's show that none of them establish that affirming this set of propositions commit one to any contradictory entailment, right? But that's going to leave open the possibility that at some point somebody might discover, right, or bring one forward, which is fine. I mean, I don't think that's epistemically illegitimate.
Well,
It's
the
just
other
kind of
claim
like,
is like impossible. The fuck? How would you show that?
yeah, I don't. It seems like a crazy thing to do because almost any claim is probably going to have almost any set of claims that anyone's likely to defend in a debate is probably going to have an immense number of possible entailments, right?
He can't possibly
I,
think that it goes through and is like a valid critique anymore, right? This is a psychological thing, right? This is just ain't my bitch, like to the highest extent going on right now,
Well, the thing
right?
that I
Yeah,
don't understand
it
is,
kind of reminds me of the claim, Jack, about impossibility of the contrary. It's kind of similar, is it not?
yeah, because my point is, I thought that you understood this, right, when that whole appeal to ignorance thing became a meme, right? You sort of understood that it was too big a burden to shoulder to say this is coherent, right? And so basically you would just be appealing to ignorance. And since you didn't want to do that, you just sort of stopped making those kinds of claims.
This is
I
just your
assume you
fucking
recall that.
ODD.
Because it had to do with what Darth Arianis brought up about conceivability.
So I guess you're saying that shooting down any putative claims of contradiction is still insufficient.
Well, it's just insufficient by the stronger standard. If you have a lower standard, right, it's perfectly fine. Like if somebody said, somebody develops a scientific theory, right, and so, somebody might say, oh, well, there's a problem with that theory. It's incoherent, right? And so then you can examine what the objection to see whether it's really true that it shows that that theory commits you to a contradiction. But if you can show that that there's a mistake being made, that you're not actually committed to it, then the theory has survived that challenge.
So
doesn't mean there won't be future challenges, but that it'll need to survive. But it will at least have survived that one.
Now, with regard to a truth table, Jack, this is something I've heard from 3 different sources, atheist sources, and it seems to me that from what they were saying, that there can be an exhaustive set of
yeah, I think that's right. If you could itemize all the entailments, I think you could construct a truth table. Right. But the thing is, I don't understand why somebody would think they had accomplished that unless, they had itemized all the entailments. And there must be like thousands.
It's fucking for sure thousands.
Yeah, it might be tens of thousands.
Dude, think about how many propositions and like the meanings of each thing between those for the Trinity or for the incarnation. That is a mountain, John. A mountain.
It's like every combination
but,
of
but,
the English fucking language. It's ridiculous.
But hang on. Isn't it the case that if somebody just believes in coherentist view of justification and epistemology, then that web of belief is infinite as well? Isn't that the case? And so they can never demonstrate the coherence, or they can never justify their belief. Is almost what I'm hearing from you guys, that one can never, as a coherentist, justify their beliefs.
No, that's not true.
You're just going to need a lower standard, right, than to show deductively that there are no contradictions.
So how about a claim like, I'm justified to believe it's coherent? How about something like that, Jack? Would that be a less stronger claim?
That's not standard.
Well, I think you're going to have a problem doing that without appealing to some kind of like phenomenal conservatism or something like that.
But I don't think if you're a coherentist, one is necessarily appealing to phenomenal conservatism.
Think about like the statement, I'm justified to believe X because I believe that it's not incoherent. But the question is, why do you believe that it's not incoherent? Then you go
it's
back to
getting a
that
little
standard.
long
That's
in the
why
tooth. Maybe Jack, you want to go to your the other point you wanted to ask about, like.
Oh yeah. All right. So the second point is, it doesn't seem like you understood what happened at the end when Tom asked you
about the human person.
Yeah, Tom asked you, what are the necessary sufficient conditions for something to be a human person? And it seemed like what you cited as the necessary and sufficient conditions established that Jesus was a human person. But the Chalcedonian doctrine denies that Jesus was a human person. He was a divine person with an additional human nature, a human nature additional to his divine nature. And it seemed like you didn't understand how you were contradicting your own position by the criteria that you adduced for what would be necessary and sufficient
Well,
conditions.
how I answered it, maybe you're right in the sense that I didn't understand the exact question. How I answered it, though, was to say that, uh, um, all human persons have a body, soul, and spirit, but not all persons that have a body, soul, and spirit are human persons. That's how I tried to explain that. And
But then you
because
didn't provide the
that's the
necessary, the
relevant
sufficient
point.
conditions.
But that's the relevant point because he was trying to argue that it's a human person. So in other words, that would be my question to Tom, in a sense of you're the one claiming human person, and so what would be the necessary human? But he actually shot himself in the own foot very early on. You will notice that he says a divine person can have these attributes of a human.
I don't think you're understanding the problem. So he asked explicitly what were the necessary and sufficient conditions for some entity to be a human person. Now, if you did answer that question, right, which is to say provide the sufficient conditions, because that's what's key here, the sufficient conditions, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you did answer that question, and if Jesus, if those, if Jesus satisfies the sufficient conditions that you itemized, then you've got a problem. So it's possible you didn't answer the question. You made a mistake when you said these conditions are sufficient, right? So that's not going to look good from the standpoint of the debate, right? Because I think you agreed in the debate that you had provided the sufficient conditions.
Well, I did
But
say.
that's a problem that has to be resolved.
Well, I did state numerous times at the end there, Jack, that having a human a body, soul, spirit does not necessarily make them a human person.
Yeah, but that just means those are merely necessary conditions and not sufficient ones. But Tom asked you for both the necessary and the sufficient conditions.
Yeah, no, I understand, but that's the way I answered it.
But
Because
does that mean
the
you didn't
way I looked
provide
at
the sufficient conditions?
the way I looked at it is that he is the one trying to claim that Jesus is a human person. Although he claimed that's not the case, that's clearly the case, because he was mentioning two persons. Ask him, what other person are you talking about? It's not in the creeds. It's not. It didn't come from my argument.
He's mixing
You're
up
the
the two
one pulling it
objections
out of
now
your own
again. You
behind.
see what he's doing, Jack?
I mean, I think so. I mean, John, did you provide the sufficient conditions?
At best, Jack, you might say that I avoided the question by claiming that these attributes of soul, mind, or soul, spirit, and body does not necessitate that it is a human person. That's what you heard me say.
Well, he asked you for the sufficient conditions, and I'm just wondering if you think you answered that question. Because he explicitly asked you that
Yeah.
in the
So
debate.
right, and so at best, I answered a question he didn't ask. Maybe that's at best.
Well, he did ask you for the necessary conditions too, so you may have answered that part of the question. But I'm wondering if you answered the part of the question where he asked for the sufficient conditions.
As I recall, I think he did get frustrated that I was not answering his question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is, it seemed pretty clear in the debate that he asked you the question, what are the necessary sufficient conditions? You gave an answer, and if it was true that that included all the sufficient conditions, that as far as we can judge, that meant that Jesus had all the sufficient conditions for having an additional human nature. An additionally human personhood over and above his divine personhood. Now, of course, if in
I
fact
think
you didn't provide the sufficient conditions, then that's not going to follow, right? Because
right. I
that just
mean, like
means
I
you didn't
said,
answer Tom's
well,
question in the
exactly,
debate.
exactly. And so what he did was what is the necessary and sufficient conditions? I probably answered in a way that this is everything that Jesus had, that does not make him is not sufficient to make him a human person. I
What?
think
Okay, well
that's
then
probably how I answered it, which is really not the question. So
you
it's
didn't
fair.
answer.
Yeah, it's fair to say that I didn't answer the question. But what I will also
No, he did
say
answer the question. He
is that,
said
well,
soul, body, and spirit, right?
I don't exactly recall. I don't think I answered that way. But if that's the case, maybe I misunderstood. But I was very clear to stress that that having these attributes can imply a divine person. And so in the point that you were arguing, Tom, is really not even the question of what constitutes a divine person. What you're saying,
Why is he talking
Tom,
about a
is
divine person now, Jack?
that the human person. What you were saying was that because Jesus had all the attributes of a human person, that he's a human person. Now, that's what you're asserting, but how you contradicted your own self is you said that having these attributes can be reflective of a divine person. Like I said, you may not remember you saying that, but you did.
Well, look, I mean, like, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. The way you worded it was really weird. Divine person could have a human attributes if they gave up their divine attributes.
That's not what you said. Because I asked you, you try to keep bringing in divine attributes. I remember that, right? And I said no. Like, that's not even part of the question.
What are you
Can a
talking
divine
about?
person have these attributes and still be divine? And your answer was yes.
Yeah, he's divine, and under the creed, he's divine and human, right?
Yeah, but again, I just simply asked you, can a divine person, right, have human attributes fully, truly? I might have said truly. I don't exactly recall.
Yeah, and I said many
But you
times
said yes.
no. Yeah, I said many times no.
No. You said many times no. You said no, referring to the divine attributes. That's when I brought up the communicado, idiomata, right? Because that doesn't have a commentary on the divine attribute to the human attribute.
Like, Jack, what is he doing right now?
So what is it attributing? It's attributing the person, right? The divine person. So the human attributes are in reference to not the human person, but the divine person. There's only one person, once again.
Yeah, you're switching between the incoherence objection and the two-person problem. The incoherence objection doesn't even go into there being two persons. It just like is an analysis on Christ having all the divine attributes and all the human attributes simultaneously.
Yeah, and I already addressed that.
Yeah, whatever.
The key point is you didn't answer the question, right?
The last question about well, I did answer it, but maybe in a way that was not an answer to the question, but it was one. I answered it in terms of that it's not relevant